Hey guys, and welcome to solving quadratics using the square root method. So this is a new method to solve quadratics. Previously, we learned about factoring to solve quadratics, and square roots method is a different way to factor, okay? Now, please notice that this method only works when there is no x term, okay? Meaning no b. All right? So we only have two steps. You ready for them? The first step is to isolate x squared. So in our example, this x squared minus 49 equals 0. We need to isolate the x squared. This means get x squared by itself. So I'm going to add 49 to both sides. And we're left with x squared, that goes to 0, equals positive 49. Okay? And then our second step is to take the square root of both sides. Okay? So we have x squared equals 49. So that symbol is taking the square root. So we take the square root of 49, we take the square root of x squared. Because this will leave us with x equals, if you do not know the square root of 49, put it into your calculator. This calculator is dead. Hold, please, for a moment. Okay, so you grab your calculator, and you make sure it's turned on. And then you press, let's see, where is it? You're going to press the second button, and you press this button, because if you see in green, it has that symbol that I just drew. And it's going to look like that. And then you're going to put 49. And it's going to give you positive 7. Okay? Now, positive 7 is an answer, but there's also a second answer. Okay? Because the square root finds the number that you multiply by itself to get there. Because, I'm going to put this off to the side. 7 times 7 equals 49. But what else equals positive 49? Negative 7 times negative 7 equals 49. So our answer actually has to be plus or minus 7. Okay? And just as a side note, so that you understand it, if we did this the factoring way, okay? Factoring, the way that we've been doing it, all right? So we would multiply the 1 times the 49. Then we would list out the factors of 49, which would give us 1, 49, 7, and 7. Okay? And then we would make our two parentheses. And we would get x's, and then we would get 7 because our b is 0. And we would get plus, and we would get minus. Because positive 7, negative 7, make that negative 49. And then positive 7 minus 7 make the 0. Okay? Remember, I'm relating it all back to this to show you why this works. Okay? And then when you solve it, you set these equal to 0, which is just changing your sign. So you would get x equals plus or minus 7. Okay? So that is just showing you that this does work and why it has to be plus or minus 7. Okay? So now you have two reasons why it's plus or minus 7. Cool. Alright, so now let's do some more examples. Because the more examples we do, the better we're going to get at it. Alrighty. So we have x squared minus 16 equals 0. So step 1, isolate x squared. Alright, so we need to add 16 to both sides. Because remember, to get x squared by itself, we got to do the opposite of whatever is there. So because it's minus 16, we got to add 16. So we're left with x squared equals 16. The next thing we got to do is we got to take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of x squared, take the square root of 16. Square root of x squared is always going to be x. And then if you don't know the square root of 16, put it into your calculator. Okay? Square root of 16 will give you 4. Now, your calculator will not tell you that it's also going to be negative 4. You have to remember that it's going to be plus or minus 4. All right, next one. Isolate x squared. So we're going to add 100 to both sides to get x squared equals 100. All right, next step, we are going to take the square root. Take the square root of x squared, take the square root of 100. So x equals, if you don't know the square root of 100, put it in your calculator. Gives you 10. Remember, it has to be plus or minus 10. Okay, just a reminder, positive 10 times positive 10 equals 100. Negative 10 times negative 10 also equals that positive 100. That's why we have to have the plus or minus. Alrighty, next one. So, isolate x squared. Okay, so we got to subtract the 25. So we get x squared equals negative 25. Then we are going to take the square root of both sides. Okay? And we get x. And then put in the square root of negative 25. Oh no! We get a domain error. Does anybody know why we get a domain error? Okay, I want you to take a look back on example 2. Alright? Where I said positive 10 times positive 10 equals positive 100. Negative 10 times negative 10 equals positive 100. What number times itself will give you negative 25? Well, let's try it. We have positive 5 times positive 5. Note that equals 25. Alright? Negative 5 times negative 5. Nope, that also equals positive 25. So there is no answer. There is no number that you can multiply by itself to get negative 25. So there is going to be no solution. Okay? That's going to happen sometimes, and that's okay. Just means that there are no solutions, no real solutions. You will learn about non-real solutions in Algebra 2, but we're not going to talk about that anymore. Alrighty, so let's move on to question 4. Alrighty. So, same thing. Isolate x squared. So this time we need to subtract 7 from both sides. And we get x squared equals 81. We are going to take the square root of 81, and that is going to give us 9. Remember, whoops, sorry, I forgot to write it on my paper. Square root of both sides, and we'll get x equals 9. But remember, you have to put the plus or minus. Okay, your calculator is not going to tell that for you. And yes, you do have to put the plus or minus, otherwise it will be wrong. Alright, next one. Alright, we have x squared minus 7 equals 4. So isolate x squared. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. Okay, then we are going to take the square root of both sides. So square root of negative 3. Oh no, domain error. Oh man, that's unfortunate. Okay, so that obviously means no solution. So what I want you to notice now is I want you to take a look at 3 and at 5. When we tried to take the square root of negative 25 and negative 3, what was the common thing? Yes, they both gave us no solution. But why did they give us both no solution? You cannot have negative in square root. That is what gives us the no solution. So anytime you get a negative under your square root, it is going to be no solution. Okay? Alrighty. Moving on to number 6. So we need to isolate the x squared. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. And we get x squared equals positive 1. Then we're going to take the square root. And so we're left with x equals, take the square root of 1, and you get 1. Don't forget, it is plus or minus 1. Alrighty, number 7. Ooh, this one looks a little bit tricky. So we still need to isolate the x squared, only now we have to do it a little bit differently. So because this is 6 times x squared equals 54, what's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. So we need to divide both sides by 6. And that's going to cancel that out. We're going to be left with x squared equals, and then you're going to do 54 divided by 6 in your calculator, and you're going to get 9. And then you're going to take the square root of both sides. We're going to get x equals, and you're going to take the square root of 9, and you get 3. Do you just get positive 3? No, you get plus and minus 3. Also, if we ever do delta math with square roots, you can't put in the plus or minus. It's going to be x equals 3 and negative 3. Okay, I'm doing this for shorthand. Alrighty, next one. We have negative 2x squared equals negative 98. So we have negative 2 times x squared, so we're going to isolate, and we're going to divide by 2. Negative 2, excuse me. Alright, and that's going to cancel out the negative, and it's going to cancel out the 2. So we're going to get x squared equals, it's going to cancel out the negative, and so then we have 98 divided by 2 is going to give us 49. So then we need to take the square root. And we get x equals, take the square root of 49, and you get 7. You get plus or minus 7. Oh man, number 9 has a fraction. That is so obnoxious. Everybody hates fractions, but that's okay, because same deal. First thing we got to do is isolate. Alright, so I am quite positive most of us do not remember, but when we are multiplying by a fraction and we need to get rid of that fraction, we are going to do the opposite. So we need to multiply both sides by the opposite of this fraction, which is going to be 4 over 3. Okay? And the reason why we are going to multiply by 4 over 3 is because, let's do it in our calculator, let me show you. So we have 4 over 3, and we're going to multiply it times our original fraction of 3 over 4. And that's going to give us positive 1, which is what we want. We just want 1x squared. Okay? And then, again, if you are not good at multiplying fractions, put it in your calculator. So we're going to do 12 times 4 over 3. and that's going to give us 16. So x squared equals 16. And then we need to, you guessed it, take the square root. Take the square root of both sides, and x equals, to take the square root of 16, that's going to give us 4. But we need plus or minus 4. Alrighty. Number 10 has 2 steps that we need to do. Okay, so we still need to isolate that x squared, but we got to do 2 things. What's the first thing we got to do? We need to add that 5. So we get 1/2 x squared, that cancels, equals 50. Okay, and then we're going to do the exact same thing we did with the previous problem. Because we have a fraction that's multiplied, we're going to multiply by the opposite. Okay, so that cancels out our fraction, and we're left with x squared equals, and then 50 times 2 will give us 100, divided by 1 gives us 100. So now we can square root. And so x will equal square root of 100 will give us 10, plus or minus 10. Alrighty, number 11. This time we have 3x squared equals 432. So, still need to isolate. We're going to divide by 3. So we're left with x squared equals, I don't know this one on the top of my head, so I'm going to do 432 divided by 3. That gives me 144. And now we're going to take the square root. And the square root of 144 will give me 12. Alrighty. Number 12. We have negative 4x squared equals negative 16. So we are going to isolate by dividing by negative 4. Negative 4's are going to cancel, and we're going to be left with x squared equals positive 4. So then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So x is going to equal square root of 4. It's going to give us plus or minus 2. Awesome. And we just completed the first page. So now let's flip it to the back. Alrighty, we are getting settled in the back. Alrighty. So I think for the most part you guys can do all of this. Let me see if there's a tough one real quick. Alright, let's take a look at 16. Okay, you guys can do 13 through 15 on your own. Alright, because there's going to be plenty of time for you guys to work by yourselves. But we need to do 16. Alright, so same deal. We need to isolate. So we are going to add 16 to both sides. And we get 9x squared equals 16. Okay? And then we need to divide by 9. And we get x squared equals 16 over 9. Oh my gosh, that looks absolutely horrible. It's a fraction, Miss Johnson. I hate fractions. But that's okay, because we're still going to do the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. And in your calculator, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to take the square root. Can you see that? Yep, cool. And then you're going to press the n divided by d button, and you're going to type 16 over 9. Okay? And then you're going to press enter. And it tells you that your answer is 4 over 3. So x equals 4 over 3. All right? Cool. All right, now let's take a look at 19. Okay? So 19 says x squared equals 19. Well, our x is already isolated. So what we need to do now is take the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. Okay. So taking the square root of 19 is going to give us the square root of 19. And so we're going to be left with x equals plus or minus the square root of 19. That plus or minus does not go away just because we're left with square root of 19. Okay? It's still going to be that. And that's okay. That is 100% allowed. All right? And so you're going to get some answers like that. Like look at 20. Okay? Isolate your x squared. And so we're going to add 41 to both sides. We're going to get x squared equals 41. So we're going to take the square root. When we take the square root of 41 in your calculators, you're just going to get plus or minus square root of 41. That's okay. That is 100% allowed. All right? Now, let's do 22. Okay, 22 is a good one. Alrighty. So, still need to isolate. So we're going to add 126 to both sides. And we get 2x squared equals 126. And then we need to divide by 2. So 126 divided by 2 is 63. And then we need to take the square root. Of both sides. So, when we take the square root of 63, you can absolutely put it into your calculator, okay? And you're going to get 3 square root of 7. Oh my gosh, how did you get that? Well, I am so glad you asked. So, let's show this because honestly, that was our Unit 5 test, and most of us did not do very well on that. So when we are simplifying the square root of 63, we have to find our factors of 63. So I'm going to do 3 and 21, because 3 times 21 gives me 63. And then factors of 3 are 1 and 3. That's not very helpful. So I'm going to do factors of 21, 3, and 7. Factors of 3, 1 and 3, not helpful. Factors of 7, 1 and 7, not helpful. So, now that I've gotten all my factors, because we use that one, and we use that one, you are going to circle your pairs. Remember, pairs go on the outside of your square root, and whatever is left over goes inside. And that's how we got that answer. Okay? That is just in case you get this question on the milestone on the non-calculator portion. You have to make sure that you can do this by hand. Alrighty. I think that's it for now because I think you can do the rest of them. Okay? Alright. Good luck, guys.